Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Near Memo with David, Mike, and me. And we are back for episode 123, if you can believe it. Today, after a long week, we will be talking about ChatGPT versus Google in a Pepsi Challenge style taste test, search test, content pruning and what the rules around that are and when you should and when you shouldn't, and whether people actually read reviews versus just looking at star ratings. And so how's everybody doing today? Feeling good?
Doing great.
Yeah, top of the world.
Okay. So I'm up first with this was something I wrote about on Friday of last week. It was pretty interesting. A company called ClickPop did what amounts to a Pepsi Challenge style blind kind of search test where users input queries and then had a list of URLs to choose from in a column A and column B, and then they selected which one they preferred. And one column was generated by ChatGPT and the other one was generated by Google. And the columns were switched up and randomized so people, couldn't tell which was which. And the interesting thing was, this is a pretty small sample. I think they had only about 750 users and only about 1,600 or 1,700 search queries. But nonetheless, ChatGPT won almost by 2-1 over Google, which I thought was really fascinating. And Bing had done something like that years and years and years ago with a similar kind of test. The difference with the Bing test was that they actually showed you a SERP versus just a list of URLs, which was the ClickPop test. But nonetheless, Bing also won 2-1. And so this to me raises questions about Google usage being a function of Google's brand and familiarity versus actual search quality, which has been a question that has been persistent over the last couple of years about the Google SERP. I just found it kind of interesting.
Question for you. So we've seen in our research at Near Media just how much Google can control user behavior by inserting various elements into the search results. LSAs, we saw that really affect user behaviors versus when they weren't there. We saw packs affect user behaviors versus when they weren't there. I mean, it sounds like this test is only judging the quality of the links, of basically the 10 blue links, not the other elements that might be in a search result. And we know that. Right.
It's not, you don't get to see a SERP. You're not seeing anything formatted. You're just seeing a list of URLs, which is a little bit problematic. The Bing test, which actually showed you a SERP, was better, I think, in terms of kind of evaluating the relative quality. So you're just quickly looking at
Yeah, it's possible if they're only showing URLs that ChatGPT is just showing better known brands than Google by default, and people are like,
right.
"Oh, I recognize these sites." So.
Right, and I think there's definitely some of that going on, but that could also be a function of trust. These recognized sites are more trusted, and thus the quality of these results is going to be better. I did a number of searches on my own pretty informally, and I had a kind of similar outcome, where I was choosing the ChatGPT results more frequently than the Google results. But it's not a great design, but it's directionally interesting. And I think it speaks to just the power of the Google brand and the inertia around the Google brand and the Google SERP. And which is something that the Neva people said when they shut down Neva. They said, and we've written about this a couple of times, that it was harder to get somebody to come to Neva and try it out than it was to get a Neva user to convert to a paid subscription, which I thought was pretty interesting, but believable.
User behaviors are very habitual, and behavior is very habitual. People don't change easily.
Well, and this is one of the questions in the upcoming Google antitrust case that was in the Wednesday newsletter, where the last week the federal court judge narrowed the causes of action that the Department of Justice and state attorneys general will be able to try Google on. Essentially, a bunch of stuff got thrown out, including self-preferencing, and what remains is the default search placements in Android and also the Apple Safari deal and the Firefox deal. And Google's argument is going to be, and this starts on September 12th is the trial, Google's argument is going to be the competition is just a click away. There are no real barriers to switching. People have lots of choice and they can freely exercise that choice. And so our users are preferring to use us. There's no compulsion here. There's no coercion of any kind. And it's really going to be a question about like how much do you believe that inertia is a powerful force in this market versus people are making an affirmative choice, and that'll be the sort of thrust of the argument. And I think inertia is a very, very powerful force, and I see it myself in my own behavior.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think inertia is definitely a powerful force, but I don't think that this particular study is really the best.
It's not rigorous
implementation of a taste test. I mean, there's so many variables in terms of the type of query, right? How many of those 1,600 queries were informational versus commercial versus transactional?
Not categorized. Not categorized.
Right, exactly. And I mean, honestly, like when I do a commercial search these days, I think the Google shopping results are fantastic. And when you do a local search, the local results are generally considerably better than the sort of organic directories that show up. So I just think it's a very narrow study, and asking anybody to judge the quote unquote quality of the result based on a list of URLs just seems like a very flawed methodology to me.
Right. I mean, I think, as I said, the Bing study was better and it showed similar results, but I don't remember the particulars of that other than they showed two side by side, unbranded search results pages. But it was just an interesting fodder for discussion on this topic. What will it take to unseat Google? Is there anything at all that can disrupt Google's kind of lock on the search market? That's a kind of rhetorical question at the moment, but it's pretty, the evidence is pretty convincing that not much is going to disrupt them. So.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.